Yeah.
David. Hi.
Uh,
Oh,
you're
you're on
still
mute.
muted.
Sorry. Hey, nice to meet you
Hey.
guys.
Yeah,
Hi.
Hello,
nice to
David.
meet you. Thanks
Very
for joining
excited
us.
to stumble upon this group not too long ago. And yeah, because I had tried at some point to find, network with people with similar interests and I think I went down some, some roads out where I didn't find people and so but then you guys are here and you're meeting every month. It's amazing.
Yeah.
We used to
We
meet a
did every
lot more
week.
often.
Mm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we used to do weekly or even more. It's died out a bit, but we're still keeping
The flame going. Yeah.
the flame going, and a lot of us are still working on that in various capacities. So a lot of it is about keeping one another updated of our respective work.
Cool.
Should we do a round table since we have a new person? Let's try to make it fast.
Yeah, I guess we should mix like because I guess usually every month you guys are doing kind of updates on your projects or what you're working on, but we could also do a round of who we are, which I think is needed.
Yeah.
Whenever there's a new person. Yep.
Yeah,
So who starts?
who starts? I can start, I guess, just because um,
Founder.
I haven't been around like all year, but I'm technically the founder or co-founder of the Canonical Debate Lab. Um, it was, I was like all of us here, building my own projects and with my own ideas. I found an organization called Democracy Earth, um, which had some really interesting ideas. I think, they started out as the Partido del Red. I think I can't say. I got to learn Spanish now because I'm going to go work for an Argentinian company. But it was an Argentinian political group that tried to subvert representational democracy and replace it with direct democracy by electing representatives who signed a contract saying they wouldn't make their own decisions. They would always vote according to the popular vote on a platform of their own. So they tried to kind of shoehorn direct democracy into representational democracy, and they made a really good kind of TEDx speech that really sparked my interest, which was like it said it all to me that like democracy as we see it now was designed for the reality of life 250, 300 years ago. And things have changed a lot. So, isn't it maybe time to build the tools for a modern democracy? Um, so I joined their group and I thought, like democracy, direct democracy sounds cool, but democracy is only as good as the people that are participating in it and the information they have and that sort of thing. So I thought it was most important to fix the information problem before we fixed the structure problem. Um, so I got involved in their community there, and that's there that I met some other like-minded people, like Venrix, who doesn't join our meetings anymore, but he created probably the most evolved platform called Debate Map. It's the most evolved version of the kind of things we're trying to build. Um, and through that, we started finding more people, and that's essentially when we came together as what was voted on and named the Canonical Debate Lab. And to this day, we talk about what do we mean by canonical, and what is our design for the canonical debate. Everybody's got kind of different approaches, but there's a lot of overlap. I also wrote with help from a lot of the people here, the white paper, which is now almost 10 years old. So that's kind of my introduction. I don't know if we want to do what we're doing in a second round. That's probably better. I mean, let's do a second round of what we're doing. But that's who I am. Yeah. My background is software engineering, basically. Yeah. I'll hand it off to Bentley, who's the next one on my screen.
Awesome. Yep. So I'm Bentley. I was with Tim right at the beginning, somewhere around there. Um, yeah, software engineer as well. been working on my own system since kind of 2011, when two of my friends got into a debate, and then been kind of thinking it through, and building, I don't know, 7 or 8 prototypes now. Right now, the project is Reason Tracker, so that's the one you'll see in there. I'm mostly focusing on scoring systems, so not so much on the general UI of displaying a debate graph, but on how can we make useful scoring systems. So in theory, it could plug and play into a lot of these things. I haven't really been working on it in the last year, because family stuff and health stuff. So I'm hoping it still might be a couple more months before I can really dive in. And then it should go a lot faster, because I'm finding with AI these days, I'm developing a lot faster. So get prototypes out the door quicker. So, and actually what I'm working on right now is, rather than giving the software and having people use the software, I'm planning on making a series of videos going through highly contentious topics and laying out the evidence for both sides, and showing what the current score is, and then inviting the audience to give feedback and watch the score evolve as we get additional feedback, until, either we find out that it's a bottomless pit of back and forth, or that it kind of, no one has anything else to say on that topic. So that's kind of what I'm up to. Marc-Antoine, you want to...
Unmute. Okay. I'm Marc-Antoine, worked on some collective intelligence tooling. I'm a bit less focused on debate than a few people here. I'm interested in basically a global memory on which to build debate. So yes, I'm interested in the argument structure, but I'm interested in all the structures around it. I'm working on a kind of generic model of structured information, which accounts for ambiguity, evolving concepts, and a lot of really hard problems whenever we try to actually unify claims by different people. We realize that, they're not using the word in the same way, and they don't quite mean that, and the fulfillment conditions are not the same, and let's make all that explicit. And this is not easy. And what I want is, my long-term aim is to design protocols/data format so that we can have an ecosystem of collective intelligence tools that can build on one another's, like specialized for either verticals or specialized algorithms for deduction and so on, but that can have a common data model. That's my focus. Meanwhile, I'm working since recently with the discourse graphs crowd, which I met here. They're working on doing not exactly arguments, but the scientific what's hypothesis, evidence. So it's like argument, but it's a bit more specialized. And they're also trying to unify within the scientific world, because that's their focus. They're very usability. And I worked a lot with Jack Park of Topic Quests on trying to gamify getting people to learn how to use structured argumentation, because it's a skill that has to be developed. And we see gamification as an objective. So that's another hat I'm wearing sometimes. The one thing we're all keen on in this group is the notion of progressive formalization. Formalization is hard. Most people think informally first, and it should be possible to contribute informal ideas and to crowdsource the formalization of it, because it's a hard skill. So that's something we're pretty much all concerned with as one of the design constraints, one of the many design constraints. That's okay, over. Who's next?
I can go. Hi, I'm Joel. I encountered this group like 2 or 3 years ago. I started coming like 2 years ago. Kind of similar to you, maybe I stumbled upon, I don't know, the white paper somewhere, and randomly found stuff. But I I am very interested in generally like structuring arguments and I guess specifically within the realm of like problem solving, advancing our understanding of problems to solve them better. And so I'm working on what I call Ameliorate, is a web app that is like basically structuring like cause and effect relations of problems and solutions, and then like putting arguments on top of that. Um, I've been working on it for like 3 years now, 2.5 years full time. Been privileged enough to work on it. And the full time part will be probably ending in like a year, but we'll see how it goes. Yeah, still just, I guess, trying to make it better, but I'm very interested in helping people discuss problems better. And I feel like, society definitely could use a better tool. Yeah, yeah. Maybe I'll popcorn to Sean. I don't know if I've met you, Sean, actually, but
No, I don't think we have. Let's see. I would second most of the basically everything that Marc-Antoine has said. We have known each other for a bit, and we amuse ourselves by attempting to figure out if we disagree on anything, and, and it's challenging. It's challenging to find disagreement. I'm a long-term part-time collaborator, but cross-fertilizer with Jack Park. And I've been on the mission of I'm a software engineer, and I've been on the mission basically of trying to provide a thoroughgoing substrate for collective cognition in the large for too many decades to be able to remember. Almost. It's been quite a while. And so basically on the appreciation that that our exponentiating technological powers are so dramatically outstripping our wisdom that some sort of exponential enhancement of our collective cognition is an existential necessity. And so I'm spending a lot of time at the moment focusing on articulating the case for the primacy of species scale collective cognition, and so that it might be funded. Because indeed, one of the one of the challenges that we've got is that we don't have collective cognition, so we're having a hard time appreciating that it's absolutely critical. And so my sense is that these the structured argumentation modality is in effect one of a countable but large number of facets of collective cognition. It's absolutely critical, and it's fantastic that there's a community that is focusing on it, and we've got lots of software examples through the decades now of dealing with that phenomenon. But my sense of it is that it's one of the critical facets in the new, in effect, noospheric cognitive mode that we should move to, that we should become aware of or embrace as a successor to the exhausted craniocentric cognitive modality. And so that's what I'm working on right now, is trying to articulate this in a hearable way for I'm tempted to use the word normies, The folks who are not geeks in the space of these rather abstruse discursive realms. Anyway, so that's what I'm up to. My name is Sean Murphy, and smurp.org, smut.com is where you can kind of pull on a string and find out more about me.
Cool. Well, nice to meet you all. I'm David Klinger. I am also a software person. I'm a web developer. I'm really primarily like a front-end web developer. And just do a lot of React stuff. And um, yeah, I had like maybe like 15 years ago or so, I was like, there was something, I thought, well, it'd be good to have organized arguments in a tree or that kind of thing. And I thought, and then, and then every time you see like watch a debate on watch a live debate or you uh go into some comment threads, there's just countless times when you see something and you realize that it's very unproductive and you think, well, I had ideas that could maybe be better than what's currently out there, and you just it's I think a lot of people realize that there's a problem, but I think maybe uh, a lot of people just say, well, this is how it is, and that's just how it has to be, or whatever. Um, but yeah, I kept coming back to this idea, and at some point I was like, well, I'm I probably could, I'm a professional web developer now. I could probably create um, that app, and so yeah, the last couple years. For the last few years, I've been working on it, and this last year, that's been my real focus outside of my day job, which is also a front-end developer. And my approach is probably a little more of a uh, relatively simplified, um, so not breaking things up so much, but in theory, yeah, you could kind of uh, link kind of more generalized point or a more kind of uh, to
Like across
a
debates.
formal or to like a formal claim in some other
Mm.
yeah, but across debates as well, but also to like another system if needed. But yeah, mine is a little more simple, and it's also centered around two people, which in a way makes it the opposite of canonical because having all debates be like um around two people where there's basically two curators. Uh, but that makes it so that it kind of encourages there to be more debates in more places. But I also would argue that I guess also reading the white paper, which I was very excited about because it just laid out things very well. And I was also on prednisone for poison ivy, so it makes you more amped up and excited. So I was like reading more than I'm not usually a very, I'm not like don't read that much, but I was very excited by the whole thing. But after, thinking about it even more, I was thinking of more ways because the canonical issue, that issue was kind of like in the back of my mind a little bit. But then, yeah, I did start thinking like, yeah, it is important to, I mean, I guess in my case, I could approach some of that with just a way to link all these, a bunch of similar things. I think it's maybe okay for people to express the same thing over and over again in their own words, but as long as there's some mechanism to link them all together, um, that would yeah. Anyway, I've been thinking more about the canonical aspect of it after being introduced to some of you guys' thoughts in the white paper and stuff.
Cool. And so this is your first time in the group, right? Talking
Yes.
Dogmas here.
Yes, very excited.
Yeah. I haven't even seen what's been going on in the Discord. I haven't had time. I've kind of headed off. but hoping to catch up. I mean, in the next round here, I kind of everybody already did it. I was gonna say what I'm working on. I'll go ahead and say that now, which is first of all nothing, right? Not very exciting. But I was looking for a job, and now I have a new job, which I'm gonna start on Monday. And so that part of my brain space is not going to be used up with the new job. And once that's underway, I hope to have my brain space back to work on canonical debate stuff. My plan, and I think, David, you're going to start going, we've all kind of gone through the same journey together, sometimes some together, some at our own times and everything. But the general journey we've gone through has been, why doesn't this thing exist? Why isn't there a place to put it all together? Why can't we debate? I'm going to make it. Generally we come to it should look like an argument map of pros and cons, which is how we naturally think about these kinds of things. And we build it, and then we go, how do I test it, right? How do I get people to use it? Right. And that's the next stage of our journey, is how do we get people to use it? And then we find out there are lots of examples of this out there. I haven't even looked in a few years at what is the one we used to refer to all the time?
Kialo.
Kialo. So there's one that really did a kind of a good UI implementation of this, laid it all out. They tried or are trying to make a business out of it. I don't know where they are in the last few years. And so then the next step was, well, okay, why isn't this successful or making an impact the way I think it should, right? Why isn't this solving the problem of people knowing all the facts and all that? So we have to explore that, and we kind of try to do better. That's a lot of, like, even back when the white paper was written, a lot of it was about, what were the limitations of that? Why did that fail? But that's part of the journey, is getting people to use it, seeing if it's actually having an impact and changing people's minds, if it's doing what we think it should do. And then we dig into all the deeper problems. But one of the big problems that's been there from the beginning, and that I really want to work on. In fact, I stopped programming canonical debate stuff a couple of years ago already. I did a few iterations, and I was like, this isn't working. This isn't the way to do it, I think. And my big question is, why don't people engage with this idea? Why don't they know it's out there? Right. The thing that's been most frustrating to me is I listen to a lot of podcasts, and a lot of podcasts that have hundreds of thousands of listeners. They're very intelligent people on the podcasts, and the refrain over and over again, and not now, this is for a couple of years now, I'm like, people don't get it, is they lament the state of the information ecosystem right now, the alternative facts world we live in, post-truth world, and they lament it, and are like, why is it, it's too bad there's no solution. And it's like, wait, we wrote a white paper, we have a group of people that we think is a solution, we think can make a positive impact. And yet, why have none of these people heard about this idea? Why aren't they, so I've been trying to figure out ways to just get the idea across to some of these influencers and that sort of thing. Whenever I've become members of different Discord and other communities of these podcasts, and even then, it's like the people in the community kind of get it, and they think it's kind of cool, but it never gets up to the influencers, the podcasters, to talk about the idea or discuss it. It's like, it's a very fundamental thing. It's like, all the information's out there. Why isn't there one place to go get it? Why is it so hard to sort through everything? Why isn't anybody just putting it together in one place in a way that I can look at, right? And so, I've been reflecting on how to make a change in the zeitgeist, in the way people talk about this issue. it should be simple. Well, like our information architecture is broken. We're obviously not filtering information into a way that's useful for everybody. So this gets to what I'm doing next, I hope. Like when I get the time, the next thing I want to do, I think, is write a trade book. Because that's the way I see people, like even people who are selling snake oil or whatever, get on what's his name? The
Rogan.
Rogan. Yeah, they get on Rogan because they wrote a book, right? And people read and engage with their ideas in one way or another. And I think we have the meat. We have a very interesting point of view and a lot of meat to add on to that I think would make a really interesting read and would impact a lot of people. And I think that's the next step I want to take, which is a lot of work. But I feel like if it goes well, it could change minds out there. Marc-Antoine, you have a hand raised.
Yep. Yeah, getting a book is probably a good idea. One thing I want to say is I'm very happy I found this group. It's not the only group. We're having some, like Jack is very much courting the MetaGov community. So I think Sean has a bit. There's Superminds at MIT. There's quite a few communities, and what kills me is how much people researching collective intelligence are not that good at working together. And
I feel attacked by that.
I mean, between the groups, there's not that much cross-group pollination. Within the groups, it's fine, but between the groups, there's not that much group cross-pollination. I think that's a real.
I mean, we still had, maybe two of us have joined up to work on a single project in 10 years, so I don't know. We can do better. Just
we can do better, and absolutely. And I think, yes, a book is important, but I think hoping to become the Wikipedia of, debated content or debated knowledge is maybe utopian. And this is why I'm so sanguine on protocols and federation. The idea is we should all be creating these little islands, and all the islands should interconnect so that anybody who meets any one of us meets the whole community. That's my perspective on how to partly approach the how do we get people involved problem. It's not the only one. There's many angles. We're looking for angles. But I really want to, us or me, it's something I plan to do right now. I'm like you, Tim. I've started this new work with Discourse Graph a little while ago, and getting a lot of basics in. But I want to spend energy and time. It's part-time, so I should still have energy and time to spend on calling all these other communities and making. Let's have a jamboree and let's discuss what our respective goals, what our respective use cases and specs to get Interrupt going. So that's my midterm plan. Over.
This is so rich. There's so many things I need to say. So one is, yes, it's heartbreaking. It's tragic that we collaboration geeks, and there are how many? Like there are thousands of us, okay, on dozens, hundreds of projects. So there's a whole clade of us who have a taste for this ambition, right? But but we lack collective cognition technology. So our capacity to converge on architecture, on requirements, on those two principally are That's the problem. We lack collective cognition. So, another phenomenal issue, of course, is the whole rice bowl challenge. That we're all, we're all struggling for funding to be able to work on this stuff. So, so we're necessarily behaving in a soft competitive mode rather than a strongly collaborative mode because of that, right? And so these are tragic. These are tragic challenges for this undertaking. Okay, and so to my way of thinking, basically what needs to be done is that we need to have we need to elevate the conversation. We need to elevate the framing and the sophistication, the level of portrayal and analysis and critique and explanation for the societal scale challenge that we are contending with, and properly understand its fullness, okay, and start to build an understanding in the broader population of the rich complexity of that. And deeply, I would submit that humanity has a technological problem, and the technological problem is that back when computing got booted up back in the 40s or 30s, or depending on whether you know about Zeus or whether you know about Babbage or whether you respect, Pascal, right? The issue is that computers were initially used to calculate trajectory tables, for the love of Christ, for for artillery, right? And the point that I'm getting at here is that the philosophical context in which computing was initiated was a positivist. There is truth. We just need to collect it, and then we're going to stick it in this box here, right? And proceed, right? So that's a fundamentally broken philosophy. It ignores the reality of how science works. The very prince of sense making doesn't work that way, and so all the other domains are even more divorced from a possession of absolute truth. Okay, so the relational model and the object-oriented model which followed it lack adequate respect in their very nature for the truth of the ongoing of the need for ongoing plasticity and sensitivity to the liveness of all hypotheses, right? So in the relational model, to be very clear, when you perform an update operation or a delete operation, the old values are gone. There is no place in the relational model for the retention of the prior. And as a consequence, and if we think about science, it's a truism that that the new assertions, the new hypotheses, are expressed in contrast with, and as a response to those prior notions. And so when we throw the old on the ground, on the floor, what we're doing is we're actually throwing away our ability to capture the nuance and the detail, the metadata, the metacognition, to be able to perform metacognitive operations relative to this distinction between these new hypotheses and the old. And so we've got a fundamental problem with the data models that our entire societal information infrastructure is built upon. And so what I'm trying to do is say, hey, we need to put collective cognition at the bottom of a new stack, okay, where everything goes on the new stack. We do it all on the new stack. And so the debate modality will live on the new stack alongside curation and media production and so on. And so basically it's a what this amounts to is a reformation. I would submit that we need to reform, we need to revolutionize our relationship with software and go from this old space of silos and apps and docs. Okay, we need to kiss all that shizzle goodbye and move on to this new world where in effect there's this cloud where we curate our all the diverse models and understandings that we have. And do they agree with one another? No, they decidedly do not. Is it free of propaganda and disinformation? No, that's part of the process. Okay. Anyway, so that I have more rant. Press here for more rant. But that's the essence. Over.
Well, yeah, I guess, yeah, I wanted to say, well, there's a few things like, well, just with that, I just want to say that, yeah, like when I was kind of designing my debate up, yeah, you do kind of realize that, or I come to the realization that if I want someone to be able to search for, use like one of the use cases I was imagining would be like people would be able to search for a point and see how people responded. But if you let people just delete their points because maybe somebody had a good rebuttal and you just have, you let them delete their point, then um and you don't keep track of that, then you can't search for that point anymore, and you don't know what the good rebuttal, the best rebuttal that actually made the person delete their point is. So that's what that made me think of, and then so as a part of that, I've been making in my plans for this app, I've been making sure, okay, I want to make sure I can preserve all the history and be able to view it at any point in history, but that does add so much complexity. It makes it so much more complex than if I didn't. But I think it's important, yeah. And I
It's
also,
absolutely fundamental, yes.
yeah. And then I also want to say with some other stuff, yeah, I was surprised that like at one point I kind of looked into like, the effective altruism group. Are people familiar? Yeah.
Yep,
And
yeah, yeah, yeah.
I was surprised that I think, well, this seems like they're very focused on certain things. And I've never been, I'm like, I get their newsletter, and sometimes I would check it to see if they're trying to ever
Yeah,
tackle
this
the issue
is
of communication and polarization, but which seems to me fundamental. Before, you're not going to be able to, you can figure out what the problem is or a solution, but if you can't convince people,
Yeah, I think all of us here kind of come from the perspective that, like, at least collective decision making is like the biggest problem we have as a race, right?
yeah.
All our problems, almost all of our problems, could probably be solved if we just solved that one correctly, right? Because then we could work out all the other climate change and disease management and
Yeah.
even asteroids and everything like that. We could figure that out if we could figure it out together, which is right.
On the effective altruism crowd, it's a diverse crowd. There's a few very well-meaning people there, but there's also a lot of people who are justifying horrors in the name of effective of weird calculations. And there's definitely the oligarchs have co-opted a lot of that conversations. They're not for collective discussion. They want to rule. Like, we're the smart people. We'll rule. We'll be the philosopher kings. It's like and there's a lot of people even in the collective intelligence umbrella who have this view of collective intelligence of the elite as opposed to the unwashed masses, and who are actually arguing collective intelligence from either a racist or elitist point of view. It's quite surprising and disappointing. do read on Tescriel if you want to know about the various currents in our weird community.
I also had a question. Just I saw on the Discord, people posting like the ponder.wiki, and then I checked that out, and it seemed just very similar to what was kind of described in the white paper, and I was just wondering. Well, I was almost surprised that the person who made it is not in this group, and I was wondering what the differences are, or if that's basically kind of the same thing.
Been a while since I've been on the Ponder Wiki.
Yeah, I just
Uh,
I just
We have
okay.
I don't know that specific case, but we've reached out to other projects that we've seen are doing similar things. We even reached out to Kialo. We had people who were doing Kialo interested. I think, Kialo had kind of the problem of being a private for-profit business where they were more concerned about competition than wanting to collaborate, and they wanted to see where we were in terms of where they were and that sort of thing. In other cases, it's the same thing. You can be a member of the group and not work with each other, or you could just not come into the group. Uh, Everybody kind of wants to do things their own way, me included, unfortunately, right? So that's why we haven't created a big group of people working together. But so some people maybe have checked us out and moved on. But in the case of PonderWiki, I don't know specifically.
Zachary,
Yeah, I think PonderWiki, I saw it shared in our Discord
That's
somewhere,
where I heard about it.
or like a while ago, and I don't remember. I don't think the person they made like a blog or whatever. I don't know if they ever actually attended one of our CDLs, but somehow they got shared here. Um, yeah, I think it's it also has a nice UI. Um, and I think they're still working on it because they have like an AI thing now when you click on
the
a thing, but it wasn't there before.
I'll have something to say about Ponder Wiki, but I'll let Sean speak. You have
Oh,
to
you're
unmute
muted.
though.
You're muted.
I put a sock in my own mouth lest I pipe up. I think it's important to keep in mind that there's a thing that I find best labeled the world problematique that we are contending with, and that is that set of interconnected and mutually protecting wicked problems. And so there is an almost immune system natured responsiveness to this set of problems. And so ultimately they protect one another from being dislodged. So this is gerrymandering. This is in the U.S. the two-party system. This is polarization. This is on and on and on, right? And so these this is corporate financing of research. This is legislative capture. This is all these things that are this pickup sticks style terrible game, right? What's tragic about that game, of course, is that our survival is plausibly being blocked by the insolubility, the Gordian kind of character of this hyperobject. And so yeah, governance happening using collective cognition is yeah, totally right. Like that's the big win, right? But how to get there is in the face of the world problematique is an extraordinarily challenging undertaking. And so a big part of my view on this is that we need to fully face just how big the challenge is for us to be able to adequately identify the requirements of a response of an intervention. Okay, and so we're Agreed. Collective cognition for the win. But at the same time, this problem is so fractally complicated that it's more than just a technology problem. Over. Oh, and the other thing was, oh, lost it. Sorry.
On PonderWiki, I didn't look at it in depth, and I should. A lot, like Kielo was mentioned, a lot of people looking at debate technology are thinking in terms of pros and cons. Here's a question, here's many positions, here's pros and cons. I think that's not the best way to model debate because it's missing a lot of dimensions. What Venrix was doing has another layer, which is really nice, which is relevance. Like, for example, you could say A opposes B. A could be true, but could be not that relevant to B. Does it really oppose B? You're not contesting A, you're just contesting that A is relevant to B. It's a very different type of relationship. You might agree with A otherwise. But contest, it's like, what do you mean by this? Asking new questions at any point. That's already IBIS, which some of us use as a base model, as this extra thing about what do you mean by this? And then there's the whole question of why is that important? And that's a question of values and criteria. There's so many ways to complexify this. How do you define this? What is this concept? What's a condition for success? What's a condition for, these are different aspects of modeling thought that are not just about argument. We're about helping people to take decisions together. And not all decisions are about arguments. Some of it is identity. Some of it is relatedness. There's so many angles. And some of it gets into very abstruse scientific arguments. And that's reality that people won't follow. But understanding, I think for people who are not specialists of a given discipline and who don't want to be, understanding the social structure of proof in that discipline is extremely important. And being able to make meta arguments. What are the criteria for estimating truth in a domain we don't know? And some of it is reputation, some of it is track record, some of it is, but being able to have the argument about what makes you say this kind of thing could be more true than this other one. Not why is this true? It's what criterion do you have to distinguish the truth of this and that? What epistemological criterion are you using here? And that's a conversation very few people are trained to have. And I think it's important to get them to realize that it's important and relevant by giving them examples where it's important and relevant. But we need to be able to represent that kind of meta conversation for them to realize why does this matter in some cases. But that's me being a maximalist in terms of representability of very complex arguments. Also, the question of interpretation. Oh, so-and-so said this. What does it mean? I think it meant that. I think it meant that. So much of real life arguments are about interpretations and people diverging on, okay, what are the consequences? What are the distinctions? Like having an encyclopedia of distinctions of known misunderstandings, I think would be extremely useful in real life. For me, that's a goal. Having a database of, if you're using that term, you're likely to run into that misunderstanding with people who understand it in this totally different way, unless you make it very explicit what you mean.
Yeah.
Anyway, over.
I would submit that what we're going through, do you guys know about the Cambrian explosion? That time, it was about 400 million years ago when multicellularity and large animals got invented, and we didn't know what the heck we were going to do, what shape we were going to have, and so there was this dramatic explosion of different body forms that got explored, and that went on for a while. I don't know, 20 million years or something, 60 million years, and then it was over, and vertebrae emerged. The vertebrates emerged, and the body plans we see today emerged from that. And so why do I mention this? I mention this because we're going through a similar a phenomenon right now in this space of these, collective intelligence or collaboration or debate or what you see. We're not even clear what the language is, right? What's the footprint? What's the overlap? What's the true scope of the thing that we're talking about, right? And so I'm a little I think an area where Marc-Antoine and I have some different perspective is this notion of whether it's interop that is what the shape of a near-term solution is going to be, or whether what needs to happen, as is my view, that we basically need to find the minimalist protocols and models that are able to host the most collective cognitive potential. And then that's the basis, basically, of the technical basis of the new collective cognitive ecosystem that can emerge. And another angle on this is that when we hear ourselves talking about, well, this is a good feature, this is this tool has that, this tool has that, what we're acknowledging tacitly, or what we're failing to acknowledge, is that the platform, the ecosystem, and it needs to be an ecosystem to be of adequate complexity to deal with the hyperfractal, hyperdimensional complexity of the problem space, that we need that ecosystem to be so plastic that software evolution itself is going on inside it. This is not just about debate. This is about what is the new information architecture for this.
What is the shape of debated truth as a data structure? Absolutely. You started with an alternative between interop and then this broader explanation, and said that was your point of view. I didn't find, as you said earlier, I didn't find anything in your longer description that I wouldn't describe as interrupt. So again, I think we evaded finding.
I know those are we're Marc-Antoine and I we're mind melding as often as we can find the time to try to finesse our articulation and understandings, because as far as I'm concerned, I suspect we agree, and that language, and that we're trying to find the right language.
Yes. And that's always the hardest. And again, I mean, in the debate system, where is the space where you get to debate the language? It's fundamental. It is the main activity of an actual alignment session, right? What do you mean by this?
And we fully agree about that. And we each have our own technological approaches to that, which as we have yet, we're still doing the dance to figure out.
Yeah. So anyway, I started, sorry, Tim, I'll finish quickly. I started to say, here's my problem with PonderWiki, or with a lot of the debate technology out there. I don't want to single them out. I think they're doing a great job. But so much debate technology is focusing on the pro-against dynamic. And for me, that's the tip of the iceberg, because so much is underneath that. Over. Tim.
I mean, this is the. Am I on? Yeah, this is the debate we've had a million times of the past decade or more, where I come from the perspective that I think we should just get it done for the small domain, and then people will learn the limitations, as they often do, and then we have to rebuild, adding more and so on, rather than never getting anywhere. But I say that having had 10 years of opportunity to make it happen in the one small domain space and not doing it. So, whatever, I'll reserve any sort of criticism. I think I would be happy just in terms of democracy and current governance, solving the one problem for now. But what I was going to say, and we're running out of time, is I want to introduce a new topic. I don't think we have time for the new topic. We could save it to next month. And the other thing I wanted to do is, we've gotten pretty abstract and advanced and referring to a lot of stuff we've talked about over decades, which is obviously leaving David probably a little bewildered. So I wanted to spend like the last 5 minutes maybe asking David what we could help you with immediately. Like, what are some practical things we can help you with while you're trying to wrap your mind around our history of conversations?
Well, I mean, uh, well, I guess, I mean, yeah, I'm not really sure. I mean, I probably, I mean, yeah, I do need, I probably do need help making this app in general. And I was just going to rely on, ChatGPT mainly because I was just
What
like
do you
making
say?
all my
Actually,
stuff. But
this is
I don't know if that's really your question.
well, sort of. I mean, and this is, I was going to bring up maybe for next month, general reflections on AI and its impact on all the things we're talking about. But specifically, as a tool, what have you been using for a coding tool? Because one of the reasons I stopped coding is I'm like, you know what? I'd rather get the word out and wrap my mind around more of this before, and then have AI code for me at some point. It's going to
Yeah.
catch up and be able to do most of it for me. And I think we're starting to we're at a point where I could probably rebuild what I built in the past years in a week
Yeah.
using
Well,
AI.
right now, I don't have any back. I'm a front end developer, so basically, right before I like stumbled upon this group, I was like, okay, I'm gonna start because I have a little, very minimal experience with the back end, and I was gonna like really dive into the, I guess the MERN stack, but anyway,
Here's a quick tip.
yeah, sorry.
Is my tool of choice, and everybody here might have a recommendation. My tool of choice right now is Cursor.
Oh yeah, people
Cursor
keep
with
saying that,
A,
and
right? There's
I've
a
never
reason.
used it.
There's a reason. And here's what I'll tell you to do after this meeting. Go look up on YouTube videos building a full stack service, a full stack software using Cursor. Because you'll see somebody in about an hour. They're doing kind of what's called vibe coding, right?
Yeah.
Which has its problems. But if you have no experience with backend, it's a great way for you to get started because you just tell it to build the backend for you. And maybe it's not right for production system, but it will give you
Yeah.
the fundamentals of just what you need to have an API and a front end working together and that sort of thing. And you can build one in hours easily.
Yeah. Yeah, people do recommend the Cursor, so
Yeah,
maybe
it's worth you
I'll do
looking
that.
into, I think.
Well, cool. I think we'll cut it off there. If anyone wants to do a meeting before next month, just post about it in the in the Discord. See if you get interest. Other than that, we'll reconvene, play discussing AI and a few other things next week.
Would it be possible for you to share the Discord link? I just tried to exercise it a moment ago and failed. Or
Uh,
whatever the heck.
I'll
Yes.
invite you.
Okay, thanks, Marc-Antoine.
I think it's the simplest.
It was great chatting with everyone.
Yes.
Good to see some
Nice to meet you
participation.
guys.
Every once in a while, it's just me and Marc-Antoine.
Sorry, I've been gone. I'm gonna try to be around
You're
a
busy.
lot more
I
often.
understand.
Well, yeah.
Nice to
neat.
meet you all in person.
Good to meet you too.
Yes. Same.
Bye, everybody.
Nice to meet you all.
Ciao,
Bye-bye.
ciao. I may need to do it in an hour for something else, but I'll do it. Ciao, ciao.